Hello there. Welcome in. Hour 3 on this Friday. Appreciate you sticking with me or just tuning in anytime for any amount of time that you tune in is greatly appreciated, whether it's on your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or it's on the Extra Sports 1300 app. And that fine piece of technology is sponsored by Diversus Health. Mental health and well-being for all. You could also watch the show on a variety of social media platforms. You know the ones. And if you want to interact, as my guy Sean Martinez did when I was hyping up his boy Baker, he's saying he's the real deal, and he commented right there on Instagram. Simple as that. If you want the more traditional form of communication, you can call or text into the show at 719-247-1313. And perhaps you have some thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. All right, let's hear from the old ball coach, Sean Payton, for story number one.
We talk all the time about, painting the perfect picture for the Q. In order to get the best out of that position, are the splits correct, the depth of the routes correct, the run, when all the stuff around them is on point, you're going to get the best, cleanest evaluation of that player. And you guys see it in the preseason. Maybe there's a real good quarterback goes in, but he's with the second group and they're having trouble blocking the one end. And so it's hard to get an evaluation of the QB because he's kind of a reflection. It's not like a pitcher in baseball that can just go in there and throw his stuff.
Once again, Sean Payton bringing up the metaphor of painting a picture when it comes to his or any other young quarterback or older quarterback for that matter. Painting the picture. And Sean Payton absolutely has painted a beautiful painting in year one with Bo Nix. They won 10 games. They went to the playoffs. They were a top 10 scoring team in the National Football League. But it is not complete, this masterpiece. To truly get the evaluation of who Bo Nix is as a quarterback, he needs one thing. One thing is missing, like the belly button from Botticelli's Birth of Venus. It is a run game. Now, tomorrow night, the main thing to watch in the preseason game against the Cardinals will be who are going to be these last two running backs. Is it Bidet and Watson? Is it Estime and McLaughlin? Is it some other combination? But once the regular season rolls around, once the real football starts getting played, this battle will mean far less because the guys that have been brought in to impact the running game when it matters the most are J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. Dobbins probably won't see the field at all, and I have severe and serious doubts that we'll see R.J. Harvey. Maybe because he's a rookie, he will, but the main focus will be on keeping Harvey and Dobbins healthy and figuring out who the last two running backs are. But it's on Dobbins and Harvey. They have to be better than one of the 10 worst rushing attacks in the National Football League in order to accomplish everything that the Broncos are setting out to accomplish. Winning a division, competing for a Super Bowl, and most importantly, in my mind, evaluating whether Bo Nix is truly the next great Broncos quarterback. And while the names that Sean Payton has brought in make you feel like he's done what is necessary to improve the Broncos' run game, they are far from sure bets. R.J. Harvey is a rookie. J.K. Dobbins has had every malady known to an NFL running back. if they hit, and in Dobbins' case, if he's healthy, the Broncos absolutely have a chance to complete this painting for centered around Bo Nix, but for Sean Payton. We can't get a true evaluation of Bo Nix until the Broncos can reasonably run the football. Sean Payton knows that. George Payton knows that. I know that. And you know that. So tomorrow night, it will be a competition adjacent to this with these 4 running backs. But ultimately, when the season begins, the Broncos' run game and its effectiveness are going to be under the microscope. And how that, if it is better, how it benefits Bo Nix. How much better can Bo Nix be with the run game? That's one of the big questions going into this Broncos season. Story number 2 today. The NCAA finally got around to handing down punishment to the Michigan Wolverines. There will be no vacated national titles. There will be no postseason ban. There will be no limiting of scholarships. And everyone that's going to be fired has already been fired. The only thing that all of this sign stealing, this cheating, let's call it what it is, words have power. It is cheating. The only thing that this cheating will cost the Michigan football program is money. A lot of money, $20 million money, but that's it, money. So you take that, knowing that Michigan still won the national title. The NCAA won't even do the thing they've done with USC and Memphis basketball and all of these other entities and said, you are vacating those. No vacating of anything except money out of Michigan's wallet. Does this feel like justice? Do you feel satisfied with what the NCAA has done? No. I think no is the answer. And I'll tell you who's the least satisfied of anyone. Michigan. Probably the least likely entity to say anything about this penalty being too harsh. We're all on the side of this doesn't feel like enough. To Michigan, you might as well have given them the death penalty because they are fighting back. A statement released earlier today that they will appeal because they feel like there was a misunderstanding of the NCAA bylaws, not by them. They knew full well what they were doing was against the rules. They think the NCAA is misinterpreting their own bylaws to punish them. And they are also calling out what they perceive to be a lack of evidence against them. So one of the most well-off institutions in America got fined, and they're screaming. My advice to Michigan, be quiet and try to figure out how you're going to win football games without Jim Harbaugh and without Connor Stallions. That would be a better use of your time. Because you have been branded as cheaters, and nothing you do will change that. There's not some smoking gun that is going to exonerate the Michigan football program. There isn't. And you know full well there isn't. They found the smoking guns. And it was that you cheated. Take your lack of a punishment, go solicit your donors and get them to pour more money into your institution as if your tuition and your attendance in the big house doesn't cover this, and move on. Because here's the other part. We're not going, even though you have the scarlet letter on you, we are not going to continue to chastise you. We don't care about you. You're irrelevant. Your rival is the defending national champions. You are nowhere to be found when it comes to college football playoff projections. We don't care about you. Don't make us care about you. You wouldn't like it when we care about you. They're trying to insert themselves back into the conversation. They're trying to relitigate this. We know what happened, and they know what happened. Everything that is done, and we will be unsatisfied with that. But that's the reality. Don't give us something else to fight against, because you will be lonely in your stance. A unbelievable amount of lack of self-awareness going on from Michigan. Take your non-punishment and go away. Don't fight this. Because you may win on some technicality with the NCAA. You're not winning in the court of public opinion. And as far as this situation is concerned, that's the only court that matters. We don't care if you're going to get your money back. You cheated. Story number 3. Haven't done this in a while. Let's check in on a team that, should I say this? Should maybe better off looking into getting wins through ill-gotten means. The Colorado Rockies. Let's check in on them, shall we? They lost 8-2 last night, but the math isn't mathing. They beat the Cardinals, meaning they won the trade. I know anytime they beat the Cardinals, that means they won the Arenado trade. Don't know if you know that. They did too good against the St. Louis Cardinals, and they are currently off the pace. They're on pace to obliterate last year's White Sox record by 2 games. This cannot happen. I don't watch this team closely enough to know what's going right, but I'm telling them to undo it. "43 wins is not worth it to anybody. If you're going to be this, be historic. Stop winning baseball games." Rockies back at it tonight against Arizona. Last night, 8-2 was the final. Arizona's figuring things out, so hopefully they can keep it going tonight, I think. We can all get behind that idea. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. Every year, we get quite a few teams that are new to the NFL postseason, at least because they didn't make it the prior year. What would that churn most likely look like this year? Tell you next on Extra Sports 1300. We are truly available on many, many platforms, this show on a daily basis, but we're not on all of them. And I will admit that. Brett having some trouble finding the show on MySpace. Yep. Not there. I think this song was one of my profile songs, if memory serves. You know the best thing about MySpace? How it would influence friendships. Right? Because you would have a top 8. And you would decide, you would be drunk with power. Because you could move friends in and out of your top 8 on a whim. Somebody looks at you funny. You could take them out of your top 8. Before you could put on some Andrew Tate for a woman that you wanted to ask out. That's what Michael Porter does, apparently. You could put them in your top 8. And you could be like, this is a sign. Like, check out I put you in the top 8. And it would be an easy lead-in to saying, hey, you want to hang out this weekend? The top 8 may be, to this day, the greatest invention of any social media platform. Yeah, we have videos. You can broadcast. We have virtual reality. You can create your own AI anime girlfriend. Like, there are just so many things that you can do on social media. But I still, to this day, believe that the greatest thing that any social media platform has given us is the ability to play judge, jury, and executioner with the top 8, with the 8. It's good times. Good times, that MySpace. Where are you, Tom? The world needs you. The world needs Tom. How about top 7? As in the top 7 teams in each conference getting into the NFL playoffs. What we have seen, much like the MySpace top 8, is that teams come and go. The consistency just isn't there. In fact, over the last decade, somewhere between 6 and 7 teams that were not in the playoffs the year before got in the following year. The amount of churn, and it's part of the NFL's power, is that unlike other sports, there is real belief. Hope really does spring eternal. Not maybe to win the Super Bowl, right? That's a smaller list. But to get in the playoffs, we have the worst to first almost every year. We have a team going from the bottom of the division to a top of a division. We have 6 or 7 new teams in the playoffs every year. Now, what's interesting is that the list of new teams has gone down. It was 7 when they expanded the playoffs, and it held at 7 for a couple years. Then it went down to 5 for a couple years. And now this past year, we only had 4 new playoff teams. So that in and of itself is interesting to watch this year. Will we get as much churn? I look at the AFC and I say, I don't know that we're going to get a lot of new teams in here. NFC, I think there's more potential for that. I would say we won't hit the between 6 or 7 average that we've had for the last 10 years. I would think it would be closer to the 4 that we got last year. But as I go through this thought exercise, and you can play along at home, so much of this show is audience participation and the ability to do this in the comfort of your own home. If I could only pick one team, because here's the other side. If a new team gets in, per the agreed upon rules of the National Football League, one team would have to fall out. So let me start there. If you told me we would only get one new playoff team this year, I would take the San Francisco 49ers. They were not that injury concerns don't linger, but they were on another plane of existence last year when it came to the injuries that they had to sustain. And I do think that losing Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga hurt them to some extent. But last time I checked, as good as Dre Greenlaw is, he's not better than Fred Warner. Christian McCaffrey, back. George Kittle, still there. Brandon Ayuk will eventually be with the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think, now they weren't a playoff team last year, but I don't think the Seattle Seahawks are going to be able to replicate their success from a year ago, and I'm not buying the Broncos' opponent tomorrow night in the preseason. Sorry. Not buying into the Cardinals. Brock Purdy's weapons healthy. One of the best couple of the best defensive players in the league on the other side of the football in Bosa and Warner. They drafted another pass rusher. They have Kyle. It's my guy. If you told me one new team was all we were going to get, the San Francisco 49ers would be that team. But who would go out? It would not obviously be an AFC team. It would be the Minnesota Vikings. I have seen this movie before from a Minnesota Vikings team. They have had an unbelievable regular season, leading to a more than disappointing playoff run or lack thereof. So much of last year with Sam Darnold, I don't believe in. And I do think that the Minnesota Vikings are a good football team overall. Not saying that the Minnesota Vikings are going to win 2 games next year. But what they had last year was something unique and a little bit too good to be true. And the idea that they are just going to put J.J. McCarthy with that team, and you think I don't like Bo Nix as a quarterback, liked him better than J.J., I don't believe that the Minnesota Vikings are going to be replicating their success from a year ago. So if you gave me one new team, it'd be San Fran at the expense of Minnesota. If you gave me 2 new playoff teams, it would be the 49ers in, the Minnesota Vikings out. It would be the Cincinnati Bengals in and the Denver Broncos out. I have my doubts about Cincinnati's ceiling being AFC Championship or even winning the division. But if Joe Burrow was this close to dragging that team into the playoffs last year, with only marginal improvement, they'll get in. And I pointed out yesterday that rookie quarterbacks who experience a good bit of winning in their first year have not been able to follow it up with a better spell of winning the next year. The Broncos, if they are not able to at least win the same amount of games, if not add to it potentially, I don't see how they'll make it back into the playoffs. So if you told me there would be two new teams, it would be San Francisco at Cincinnati, Minnesota, and Denver would be out. If you told me there were going to be three new playoff teams in the NFL, I would tell you, well, I'll take San Francisco and Cincinnati, and I will say goodbye to Minnesota and Denver, and they can try again the next year. Then I would say I look to the AFC East. And I would say I don't love this division, but somebody's got to be second in that division. And there's a non-zero chance that the Miami Dolphins are going to completely collapse this year. And I've talked about the New England Patriots, how good of a coach Mike Vrabel is. I do think Drake May, they have something in him. I mean, if you can finish second in your division, you're going to get a decent chance, right? Sorry, AFC South. There are three new teams. I would say most likely would be Cincinnati, San Francisco, New England, Minnesota, Denver, and Pittsburgh, you're out. I don't know that Aaron Rodgers is a massive upgrade from what they had previously. They get rid of George Pickens, and I certainly can understand the reasoning for that, but it leaves your offense a little imbalanced. And more than anything else, your offensive line's not very good. And you're putting an aging quarterback back there. So if there are three new teams getting in and three teams going out, Cincinnati, San Francisco, New England, in, Denver, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, out. If you gave me four teams, same amount as last year, I would have to take the three that I've already put out there, and I'd have to say something's going to happen with the AFC South. Or one of the Souths. That's where the next team would have to come from. I think it's going to be Tampa and Houston winning their divisions again. But if you're telling me that we're going to get four new playoff teams, I got to look to those two divisions and say, is there any movement there possibly? And now I am speaking with less confidence because I don't know that I believe that this will happen. This is just the most likely. If you told me that X number of teams were going to be new into the playoffs. What if CJ Stroud's regression is either CJ Stroud based or the Houston Texans aren't fixing the problems that's causing CJ Stroud to regress statistically from one year to the next? Probably more likely the latter than the former. But that's the scenario that I could see where Houston may not be in, and I'd look to Jacksonville as the most likely team, if not Houston, to be that team. The Indianapolis Colts might crater this year. And that's going to be good for a Jags team that I think Trevor Lawrence healthier with Liam Cohen, maybe some new ideas. Travis Hunter, who knows? He could win both offensive and defensive rookie of the year this year. Don't love their defense at all. But if they, and this is the whole bet they're making in Jacksonville, if they can get Trevor Lawrence right, that's going to go a long way. So if there are 4 new teams in, it's Cincinnati, San Francisco, New England, and Jacksonville. If you gave me 5, I'll throw in Dallas and say some of the bloom comes off the rose of Jaden Daniels. It's not that not like the Commanders don't have flaws on their roster. And Dallas, when Dak is healthy, say what you will about them in the postseason, they win games. Not big games, mind you, but games like quantity over quality. They beat up on the lesser of the NFL. So if it was going to be 5, which now you're really pushing it, in my opinion, Dallas does what they normally do with a healthy Dak Prescott, and maybe the Commanders take a big step back. And this is my absolute limit. I'm not going to 7. There's no way we're getting 7 new teams. The rash of injuries that would have to take place in targeted NFL markets would be too much for me to even wrap my head around, even in a hypothetical. But if you gave me 6 and I still don't love it, I'd go back to one of the Souths and say my newfound love for Baker Mayfield and my dark horse, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'd say something's going to go wrong with them. And what would be the next team up? Atlanta. I like Michael Penix. I don't like him fighting. I also like it better when his name is spelled correctly, and I think his parents like that better too. TV station in Atlanta. But you know they have skilled position players. Right? They finally did kind of the thing that they should have done last year. Instead of drafting Michael Penix and getting a pass rusher, they got one in this draft, so they did a little backwards. But now you have Penix. It's his job with London and Robinson and, yes, even Kyle Pitts. You get the pass rusher you need on the defensive side. If Tampa Bay isn't all what they are cracked up to be, and they somehow miss the playoffs, it would be Atlanta in. But again, when you get, I think 1, 2, or 3 feel pretty good about. Beyond that, I'm really having a tough time. But that's where I landed. Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. Put whatever number you want. Doesn't have to be 6. 3. 3 new playoff teams. Pick them. And then you'd have to tell me who they're getting in over. 719-247-1313. Tom Pelissero, within the last hour, went on NFL Network and said that the NFL initially proposed a more than 10-game suspension for Rashee Rice. And the NFLPA came back and said there's no precedent that has been set for you to suspend him for that many games. So when I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today about, how valuable Roger Goodell has been to the National Football League, and this idea that anybody, because of how good the NFL is, could probably do a lot of what Roger Goodell does. And maybe that's true, but we forget sometimes Roger Goodell's most important job function, which is to be a human shield for the owners. And so often when we're talking about Roger Goodell did this, Roger Goodell did that, it's really the owners. So I go back to our earlier conversation regarding the Michigan punishment, and also the fact that the NFL was delaying the disciplinary hearing for Rashee Rice until late September. Like, they're doing that. That's still a thing. But I think many people are bracing for this suspension to be quite underwhelming. And it may be in many people's minds. But if Tom Pelissero's reporting is correct and it holds up, and I have no reason to think it doesn't, it's really not the NFL that is preventing Rashee Rice from getting a significant suspension. It's the players' union. So in the end, it will be, the NFL only suspended Rashee Rice 4 games, 6 games, whatever it might be. But it's not because the NFL only wanted to suspend him for 4 to 6 games. They wanted to suspend him for longer, according to Tom Pelissero. It's the NFLPA that's pushing back. And look, that's their job. Okay, you can, it's like a public defender or a defense lawyer. Maybe better public defender than a defense lawyer, because defense lawyers, sometimes they earn the reputation that precedes them. But just the idea here is that you have a criminal justice system in which the accused party is allowed a fair trial, and somebody has to be on their side, right? And we don't always like it. We sometimes wish that these barriers that were put in place are gone, and people who are clearly guilty and did something heinous go right to jail, and in some cases never leave jail. But it's one of the cornerstones that our country is founded upon, that if you are arrested and accused of something, that you get a fair trial, and somebody with better knowledge of the law needs to be on your side to be able to argue your case. If for no other reason, and this is a great example with Rashee Rice, if for nothing else than to just get you a lighter punishment. What Rashee Rice did is not up for debate. It happened. And the criminal justice system found him guilty of this. Now we're talking about this next level of the NFL. And what will they do? Well, the NFLPA is doing what their function is. And you could look at it as they're trying to get Rashee Rice off with a lighter suspension, And you're right, but it's what they're supposed to do. But just remember that when the suspension comes down, if it is not as significant as you would like, and you start your Chiefs conspiracies, well, it's the NFLPA that may have gummed up the works a little bit here. And maybe the ones that ultimately make you think that Rashee Rice did not receive a significant enough suspension. Interesting stuff from Tom Pelissero. Also, one other note, he did say perhaps a settlement could be reached between the NFLPA and the NFL before the start of the season, which would negate this talk of why is the hearing on September 30th when the Chiefs with Rashee Rice get to compete for 4 or 5 weeks before we even find out if he's going to be suspended. I mean, we know he's going to be suspended, but before we even know what that suspension is and before he begins serving it. So that's the other significant part here. Could this thing actually get figured out before the season starts, which would then lead me to believe Rashee Rice will not be available week 1 or 2 or 3, and I'll say probably at least 4. And then we go from there. But why it's not 10, according to Tom Pelissero, it's the NFLPA, not the NFL. Just important sometimes to know who you're mad at. But again, it's their job. You cannot like it. It's the NFLPA's job. All right. Preseason football, one game already underway. So, and I didn't have it up here in the studio, so I already missed the reason for watching Tennessee and Atlanta. That was 2 series of Cam Ward, so he's probably out by now. So let's move on to the later game tonight, shall we? Chiefs and Seahawks. Why should you watch this preseason game? Or why would you? Maybe that's the better question. Why would you watch Chiefs and Seahawks in the preseason? Good question. And the answer is backup QB vibes. Gardner Minshew versus Drew Lock. 2 of the most unserious characters to ever play the quarterback position are going head-to-head tonight. That would be the reason why someone would watch Kansas City or Seattle. Also, betting applies to all of these, by the way. Miami, Detroit tomorrow morning. Are we going to inch closer to a complete Mike McDaniel meltdown? He's talking about Eminem lyrics. He's talking about how today is a good day because he's one step closer to dying. Like Mike McDaniel seems to be going through something because of this football team, and could this preseason game drive him closer to that breakdown? Carolina, Houston. I want to see more of Tet McMillan. Made a great catch in the Carolina-Cleveland game last week. Want to see more of him, and I want to see what all the fuss is about with Jaden Higgins, because the Houston Texans kind of messed everything up by giving him a guaranteed contract for a second-round pick. So I want to see what all the fuss is about. Green Bay, Indy. Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, of course. Daniel Jones will start. Anthony Richardson will play the majority of the snaps tomorrow morning. And the last game tomorrow morning, or no, 2 more games tomorrow morning. New England, Minnesota, more Drake May or more Trevion Henderson. Took the first touch of his NFL career, back 100 yards for a touchdown. Broncos could have drafted him. Cleveland, Philly, that one's obvious. Dylan Gabriel. He is, in fact, healthy enough to play. So we will get a side-by-side comparison with Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, although Gabriel is going against Philly and Shedeur went against Carolina. Just mentioning it. San Francisco, Las Vegas. Ashton Genty. Got to be better than he was last game. Pete Carroll says that all of his starters will be quote-unquote live, including Ashton Genty, who did show out in the joint practice between the two teams yesterday. Baltimore-Dallas, that's the Cooper Rush revenge game. That's an easy one. Chargers and Rams, will someone ask Jim Harbaugh in the postgame press conference about the Michigan penalty? Jets-Giants, Jackson Dart overshadowed by Shador. Now, no Shador. Could Jackson Dart be the rookie we're most talking about on Monday? He was 12 of 19 for 154 yards and a touchdown for the Giants last week. Tampa, Pittsburgh. How will Jalen Ramsey respond to Steven Nelson trolling him? Mike Tomlin said Jalen Ramsey will be on every number one wide receiver the Steelers face. Steven Nelson, who played for the Steelers, said on Instagram, easy money, take the over on whatever wide receiver he guard. Let's go, with many O's. Will Jalen Ramsey show out, or will he even play? Arizona, Denver to close out the evening tomorrow night. Easy. 4 running backs, 2 spots. That's what I'm watching. That one. To Sunday, Jacksonville, New Orleans. Will we get more Travis Hunter? He has an upper body injury. My gut says no, but we don't know for sure. Buffalo, Chicago might be the most anticipated preseason game of the weekend because we get to see Caleb with Ben Johnson's fingerprints for the first time. Did not play in the last preseason game. He'll play in this one. Does Caleb Williams look better with Ben Johnson? I think he's going to, and Ben Johnson will see to it. His reputation early on as a head coach is on the line. Caleb Williams' reputation is on the line. I think Caleb will look pretty good in the preseason game. And then Cincinnati and Washington, the Bengals, trying to start off the season quicker, will play their starters. Still don't have Trey Hendrickson, though. So there you go. Anybody asks you, why are you watching preseason football? Bring up one of those reasons. And they are great reasons. Also betting. That will do it for the show. Appreciate your patronage and the interaction. Enjoy your weekend. I'll talk to you tomorrow night for Switchbacks and Orange County, 6:30 here on Extra Sports 1300.